You're tuned in to Shake, Rattle, and Goal, the official podcast of your Springfield Thunderbirds.
Osmanski, a one-timer deflected side of the goal. Alexandrov scores!
Hosted by Matt Baker and Steve Forney. A show that's everything Springfield hockey, with interviews including players, coaches, and staff.
The Springfield Indians repeat as the Calder Cup champions.
Listen to this podcast on all major streaming platforms and wherever you download podcasts.
In his first year at the helm, Kevin McDonald and Drew Bannister have the Teamers in the Calder Cup Finals.
Watch the podcast on the official Shake, Rattle, and Goal YouTube page at SRG Podcast.
And now, here are your hosts, Matt Baker and Steve Forney.
And this episode, number 6 of the SRG Podcast, is brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing in Tower Square in downtown Springfield and their new location in Amherst, your go-to pre-game spot for Thunderbirds games. Alongside Matt Baker, I am Steve Forney. And speaking of that, Matt, real quick, before the game on Sunday, you got the chance to go down to White Lion pregame. So how was it?
We did. It was great. Yeah, we went Sunday for the kids club opener. My wife and my kids met another family down at White Lion. Had the spicy chicken, some nachos, and the mac and cheese. 1 or 2 flights. It's funny. They serve the flights. Little. They're more than samplings of different beers. But you start in the Berkshires and you make your way over to Boston because they serve it to you in the plate is a cutout of Massachusetts. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that is cool. That is cool. Very cool. Well,
Great time. And there was actually the first time I'd been there with my family. And so I didn't know exactly how the vibes would be, but it was great. There were other younger kids there. We actually met another younger kids club member there. She was there with her family as well. So it was a good time. It was good.
Awesome. And for those who can't tell, Matt might sound a little hoarse today. Usually I'm the hoarse one after a weekend of games. But Matt and family was in attendance for both of the games, which we are obviously going to get into, Matt. Finally, we have some actual hockey games to talk about, which is great. We also do have just some news, just some sort of lead off the top here with some general news, not only with Thunderbirds related, but AHL and NHL related at that matter. That's relevant to us. I think the top story is the captaincy and the assistant captaincy getting named. Mm-hmm. Matthew Pekka is the captain, and then 4 alternates, obviously 2 at home games, 2 on the road. Anything surprise you in that group?
I think, and we've talked about this, excuse me, at length, but I think the biggest surprise was Bitten not getting the A. I think Pekka is very well deserved to have the C. He sort of was my thought. That's who I thought would get it. I'm proud for him, happy for him. Not to knock the guys who did earn the A, but it was surprising to see Will Bitten not named one of the leaders. I think, Rosen, Walker, McGing, and Kessel are all guys that I think you could expect maybe to get some NHL time. But, we talked about this too, Kessel, and we'll talk a little bit about this probably when we break down the Providence game. He clearly has the talent, and sometimes he just finds himself maybe half a step behind or making that silly mistake. And I'm hoping maybe with the A on, refocuses him and he feels a little bit of that added pressure and he can rise to the occasion. So I no major gripes, just a little bit surprised that Will Bitten wasn't named, but maybe the team knows something that we don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was interesting too. And maybe, some guys just don't want it. Yeah. Maybe there's a chance that he just wasn't interested in it either. My biggest thought on that, and we talked last episode, I thought that guys like Rosen and Walker would not get it because they were going to be spending so much time going back and forth. But I guess when you look at it on paper, both of those guys have to clear waivers. Both of those guys make more money than somebody like Will Bitten. So if you need a quick call up, maybe Bitten is the cheaper, easier, more flexible option to come up and down. And so maybe they said, well, Walker and Rosen, chances are going to be spending more time down in Springfield, which, by the way, is good news for us. But maybe the thought process there was, again, like we were sort of talking about, which players are going to spend more consistent time down here. And maybe that says something about Will Bitten, about being an option for St. Louis when call-up time is needed.
Sure. Yeah, that great point. Good insight there. That's a good point.
I'm really glad that Hugh McGing is there. I really like this player. I think that he's got a great personality. I think his game has gotten better and better each year. I don't know what his ceiling is in terms of AHL skill or NHL skill or anything like that. He reminds me of Anthony Greco, super fast, small on the small size, but doesn't mind getting dirty, getting physical. Had a couple scuffles along the benches over the weekend. So that's a player that I really like, and I'm actually really glad that he was able to get that as well. Elsewhere around the AHL, it looks like, as we said, this Atlantic Division is going to be good. Hershey gets shut out in the opener. We talked about that sort of Calder Cup hangover.
Yeah, right.
They might have been dealing a little bit of what the Thunderbirds have dealt with against Hartford, which was you're playing a team that's already played and you haven't. And it takes that, period and a half, 2 periods to get into the flow of the game before it all starts. So maybe there was a little bit of that. I obviously didn't see the Hershey game, but that very well could have happened. Getting shut out in your season opener coming off the Calder Cup isn't never something you want to happen, but it happened, and glad it happened to Hershey. And then sometimes it's that too. There's all the buildup that, you put the banner up, the game starts later than it usually does. Players are kind of, they're not
in their routine.
You're out of that routine. Exactly. And so maybe there's a little bit of that too. But I think one of the things we're learning is that this division is going to be good between Thunderbirds, Providence, Hershey, Charlotte, Hartford. We're going to get into the games of the weekend, but these are some darn good teams.
They are. And if I can make a real quick, way too early prediction on how this kind of unfolds, I don't think I wouldn't be surprised to see those top tier teams, the Springfields, the Hartfords, Hershey, Providence, when it's all said and done, they play each other so much. I think if you are around 500 amongst those teams, I think that's fine. And I think where you can separate yourself is when you have those opportunities playing maybe a little bit lesser talented of a team, you've got to dominate them. And I think, that it'll be interesting, I'll bookmark this episode, and at the end of the season, we'll see if there's any truth to that. Right. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that sort of everybody's flirting around 500 amongst each other, and, who dominated Scranton, who dominated Lehigh Valley, who, in Bridgeport, who.
Yeah, well, Bridgeport's always tough. Like Bridgeport had a really nice year last year, but they're like the Islanders. They're just a pain in the neck to play against, and it doesn't matter where they are in the standings. They're always just a pain. So, and it seems like every year you get that one team that comes out of nowhere, like Hartford last year, where in December they had no business even sniffing the playoffs. Then before you know it, they're making a run. So, again, we'll see Wilkes-Barre and Lehigh Valley this weekend. And I don't have very high expectations for those teams, but ask me again in January where those teams are at, because they could pop off just as easily as everybody else.
Sure. No, 100%. And they're not without talent. There's talent on that roster. I'm speaking optimistically. If the Springfield Thunderbirds, and I think they have the potential is there to be one of the better teams in the division, I think if they can flirt around 500 with those other top level teams, what will separate them is, can they dominate Scranton? Can they dominate the other teams? And we'll see how that goes. But that's sort of, if Springfield is going to take that next step, then that's, I think, what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just a couple of other sort of newsworthy things. Obviously a great weekend in Springfield, a great attendance. The fans were awesome. we'll obviously get into the Bridgeport game, the Providence game, but nice to see Adam Gaudette getting recognition for the third star of the night across the league on Sunday after that win in Providence. So big stuff there. And I'm curious what, if you look up to the NHL level, Pavel Buchnevich, who's a big part of the St. Louis Blues, looks like he's going to miss maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 weeks. And I wonder if this is a chance for Nikita Alexandrov, who had a great camp.
That's exactly the same thought I had. Noticing he kind of was left out of the starting lineup. He's clearly on their roster, and hopefully this is his opportunity to crack the starting lineup, get some good minutes, and see what he can do, and really be a force up there in St. Louis.
Yeah, and
you also had go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well,
you had Tyler Tucker.
Yeah.
Tucker scoring the first goal of the season for the Blues. So that was awesome to see.
Yeah, the first of the whole season went to Tyler Tucker. That was awesome. Yeah, just real quick on Nicky. Usually when he's gotten into the roster, he's that fourth line guy. And Buchnevich plays a lot of minutes, so I'm wondering if they're going to kind of divide that and add it to guys like Thomas and Kyrou, or both. But maybe there's a chance Nicky's playing a bigger role if he gets that nod, if he sees some power play time, if he sees 18 minutes instead of 12 minutes or something like that. I think that would be that'd be great for him. So obviously we're wishing the best for both of those guys, Tyler Tucker, Nicky, Toropchenko, all those guys. We want them to absolutely crush it up there, and the more that they're crushing it up there, the less they'll be picking at our roster here like a carcass.
Well, so, that's it, right? The less if those guys are doing what they're capable of up in St. Louis, the chances of Will Bitton, Nathan Walker, those guys staying down here and continuing to build their chemistry here in Springfield, that's kind of what we want here for the Thunderbirds.
Yeah. Absolutely. So let's look at the games this weekend. Saturday night, opening night against Hartford, sellout crowd. Looked like they were a little kind of like we talked about Hershey, a little sluggish off the jump. And I think you feel like I do. I think it might have just been the fact that maybe Springfield wasn't all that sluggish. Maybe Hartford was just that much more ready to go based on the fact that they'd already kind of played a game on Friday night.
Yeah, I think that's a real thing. I do. You can't replicate game speed in practice. You can't really replicate game speed in preseason either, I think. So the first period, Hartford, in my opinion, clearly was sharper, faster. Even you look at that first goal, I forget who scored it for Hartford, but Coughlin misses the check, the hip check over there on the against the boards. I think it was Rosen is late crashing the net, and in it goes. So they just seemed that first period a step behind. Subban, in my opinion, was great in that game. I think that's going to be a strength for this team. The goaltending, absolutely. Without Subban in that first period, it could have been 2-3-0. So he kept them in the game. I think in the second and third period, I think the Thunderbirds looked like a better team. They did, in my opinion. They matched the speed. I thought they did a nice job circulating the puck. I think they struggled this weekend getting through the neutral zone a little bit, but once they got into the offensive zone, they circulated the puck well. Pekka line, Pekka, Gaudette, and Walker. Without them this weekend, oh man, it would not look good. So they played really well. I thought the penalty kill. I know I'm rambling off a lot here, Steve. So feel free to jump in.
Fire away. No, fire away. You're good.
I thought their penalty kill actually played well. 5-on-3. What can you do? Some suspect referee calls there, but I thought their penalty kill looked all right. Their power play, they didn't light the lamp on a power play, but I thought they looked okay. They've never really impressed me with their power play. A lot of passing around the perimeter, but I thought they circulated the puck well. They found the slot a few times. Dylan Garand he stonewalled them. I mean, he really did. From my vantage point, I sit over in section 1, And those first and third periods, T-Birds had some empty nets. They had some chances, and Garand just came out of nowhere and stonewalled them. So, that happens throughout the course of a season. You just run into a hot goalie and not much you can do there.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about, when anybody talks about chemistry, we usually think of the three guys. And things like you're saying, power play, penalty kill, special teams, neutral zone, that's a 5-man unit. Sometimes a 6-man unit when you throw the goalie in there as well. And those are the kind of things that take adjustments. I mean, how many of these guys either were playing with new faces or were playing their first AHL game in that game?
Sure. Yeah.
So not having that opportunity to get their feet wet. And I think the Zacks, I think Dean and Bolduc played much better in game 2. I mean, they played much better by the time the third period rolled around in the Hartford game. But I think that adjustment period was definitely there, at least for the first 20 to 30 minutes of the game, the first period and a half.
Sure.
So I do think that I thought the officiating was strange. I thought that there was big, obvious penalties that didn't get called, and then a lot of sort of ticky-tack stuff that didn't get called. And it's like every year, and this goes on in all sports, every year there's something new that they need to focus on. They get the memo from the head of officiating that says, we're cracking down on hooking, we're cracking down on slashing, we're cracking. And so they pay laser focus on those things, and they start calling these stick infractions that are just not, it's 50-50. They're going to now call it. I think usually they grow out of that.
Yeah.
And there's less of it as it goes on throughout the season. But the first couple of games, it's like being a teacher, Matt, right? You got to start off hard, and then you can ease up as the year goes on, right?
And it's also the players learn to adjust to the new style of refereeing. As you're saying, there's always a point of emphasis for the referees that they need to, and the players will adapt. And I'm sure too, it takes a little while for the players to recognize certain referees, how they call a game. Some referees are going to call it a little bit tighter. Some aren't. Some, you don't expect much from. Look, refereeing is always an issue. I always try not to make that too much of an excuse. I mean, it's bad for everybody. But, there were some suspect calls. I think it was the first goal against Hartford. It looked like he was in the crease a little bit. I thought that could have been goaltender interference. He wasn't pushed in to the crease at all. And I thought he was in there before the puck got into the crease. But again, if you make that check against the boards, I believe it was
Coughlin.
If you make that check, or probably the better play is not even attempting it because you weren't even close, right? If you don't attempt it and just sort of play the body, you make it a little bit more of a difficult pass into the slot there. But overall, sure, it was disappointing not to come away with the win. I thought the crowd did a nice job. Subban played great. First line, the Pekka line played fantastic. I thought Pekka looked really good. I thought he looked fast. He looked crisp. He was playing, red line to red line, really. Without them, that game could have gotten carried away. So I think the empty netter, it was a 2-1 game. And I think games like that, again, over the course of a season, the puck is going to bounce one way for Springfield. It bounces one way for Hartford. So it was promising. Obviously, things to work on. Promising. I left Saturday night, again, disappointed, but optimistic that, all right, I think there might be some pieces here on this team.
Yeah, and I don't mean to beat up on them too hard, but that was sort of the talk that I heard, was that first goal that sort of sucked the life out of the building. And sometimes there's this, and I've noticed it at all levels of hockey. If the other team delivers a big hit, mentally you change a little bit. Now you feel like you need to lay a big hit. And
sure,
somebody on Hartford laid a nice little hip check, one of those old school hip checks, like 45 seconds before Coughlin tried his.
Yeah.
And, here's a guy he was played in Chicago last year, so he's not familiar with the players in the East. A guy who I think thinks that he belongs in the NHL, so he thinks he's got something to prove. And I think it just got away from him for a second. I think he was just like, you know what? I am going to send this guy rear end over tea kettle
Yeah.
and underestimating the speed. And yeah, when you try to lay a hit like that and it doesn't go, you're really setting yourself way out of position.
And
I think
dangerous
it's
too. I think it was like 30 seconds left in the first period too. It was tough timing. Tough timing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and Belzile got that, but yeah, you're right. It was inside of the last half minute of the period. So I again and he had a lot of penalties in that game.
Mhm.
But I do think that he was actually really, really good on Sunday. And
agree.
you know, when you have a game that's not very good and you know it's not very good, but you're able to come back the next night and show, I think that's the way to do it. So Hartford, to me, it's just I still look at it last year and I'm like, how are they good? I look at Providence, and again, I know I'm a Bruins fan, but I look at that lineup and I see McLaughlin and Lysell and Lowry and Georgi Merkulov and just guys that will play in the NHL someday. And then I look at the Hartford roster and I'm like, where is that? Like, there's like two, maybe three guys in that roster that have NHL capabilities. And it blows my mind how they're good. Like, I can't wrap my head around why Hartford is good, why we're not talking about them being in the basement.
I mean, they might end up there. Dylan Garand, I don't know, from my vantage point, he played phenomenal. And you know this, right? Sometimes it could you just ride the goalie as far as he'll take you. Springfield was the better team for 2 out of the 3 periods. They just could not get the puck past Garand. And, you know, I don't think there's room up in the NHL for him yet. I think the Rangers are pretty solid there. I know they just picked up Jonathan Quick as well. So, you know, I think Garand expect to see him all season long unless there's an injury, but he just played really well. I mean, in my opinion, that's all I can say. Nobody from Hartford, I didn't feel like Hartford was faster in the first period, but the second and third period, I think Springfield stepped their game up and they were the better team.
Yeah. And again, we've been talking a lot about the Hartford guys. Malcolm Subban, if that's what we're going to get all season, we are going to be in great shape. Like you said, that could have been 3-4-0 to start the game. And his positioning is sound. I don't know if people noticed, but I just know from his time in the league, he loves to handle the puck. So he does some stuff that might freak you out a little bit. You know, he got one that was on one side of the net and just kind of, flipped it across the front of the empty net to the far side. And
yes.
I have confidence in him doing that. There's not many guys I'm like confident in that move. But I thought he was absolutely exceptional. I thought goaltending was the story of the weekend on both teams. I thought Brandon Bussey was not very good for Providence, but other than that, I thought the other 3 guys we saw, like you're mentioning, were excellent.
Yeah. And if we can talk a little bit about the Providence game, I mean, let's start right off the bat with Big Z. He made a save, and we'll break down the whole game. I don't want to jump right to the third period, but he made a save there within the last minute of the game that even my kids, after he made it, it was 6-on-5. Bussey had already went to the bench, and he had the right side of his net was wide open. I don't know if you could see it from your vantage point, Steve, in the box, but he made a save. The puck bounced. Excuse me. And he threw a stick out there and he got it. And my kids, oh my gosh, I can't believe he made that save. It was phenomenal. So, Zarenko, let me ask you, Steve, who's in charge of picking stars of the game?
So I don't want to throw him under the bus because I feel the same way you do. But you
could just
Ryan.
say someone.
It was Ryan, the broadcaster, but the goalies to me always get shafted with the 3 stars because it's like, well, if you give up 2 or 3 goals, then you're automatically out of the race. But when you have 41 shots on net
and good shots,
right, and you save whatever 37, 38 of them, and you get the win.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, excuse my math.
Zarenko, yeah. And again, I didn't know Gaudette played great, but Zarenko lights out. I think, again, over the course of a season, both goalies, they're going to have, half a dozen games where you're just like, ew, right? Oh, awful. And that happens. If this is sort of a baseline of this is what we can get in between the pipes between Subban and Zarenko, because they were sharp. They were on their game. I thought Leo Loof played really well against Providence. I like him. I know he's young, an early draft pick by the Blues. But he didn't seem afraid of the moment, more so on Sunday. Right off, I think, second series, I think, Hugh McGinn got mixed up in a little something in front of the net. Leo Loof was the first one there and was not afraid to back down. So I was very impressed with his play. I thought he played pretty sound defense as well over the course of the whole weekend. But I think he can be something special, I think. Give it time. Again, he's young, so he's going to make mistakes. He was out of position a few times, but I think overall played pretty sound defense. And I was glad to see him proactively be aggressive and not just have the moment pushed onto him. He brought the moment to himself.
Yeah, and there's another guy who's playing in his first AHL action. So when we always focus on the Zacks, but Leo Loof's another guy who, Saturday night is a feeling out process. You got to really get your feet wet. You got to get your skates under you. And I thought Leo Loof, not afraid to stick up for his teammates. I thought he was great in that game. I think we're probably set on the Hartford game. We want to break down Providence, but before we do, I do just want to give a shout out to our friends at White Lion Brewing in their new location in Amherst on North Pleasant Street. And of course, right down there in downtown Springfield at Tower Square at 1500 Main Street, the place to go prior to Springfield Thunderbirds games. Just ask Matt Baker. Parking in downtown Springfield is a bit tricky these days. Make sure you park in the Tower Square garage, then swing into White Lion, show them your T-Birds ticket, and they will validate your parking for you. And of course, while you're there, grab some nachos, some mac and cheese, the Hall of Fame wings, along with any of their 20-plus beers that they have. Don't forget, you can find those in your favorite White Lion, or you find those White Lion beers in your local liquor store cooler as well. Make sure you go there and get the statewide flight that Matt had. White Lion Brewing now in Amherst and in downtown Springfield, proud local supporter of the SRG podcast. Make sure you tell them that the fellas at SRG sent you, and of course say hi to Matt if he's there. Definitely say hi there as well. So I'm glad you got the opportunity to go check that place out. It's funny. I thought on the surface that these two games might go the opposite way. Mm-hmm. You have Hartford, who played the night before, went to overtime, came, had to travel to Springfield, which again isn't exactly like crossing the Atlantic. But, you had them in a vulnerable spot. And maybe this is the kind of thing where if you took this exact scheduled weekend and you plopped it into November or January or February, it might go differently. Providence had the night off on Saturday, then came into a team that played Friday night. And then Springfield played Saturday night and then had to come around and play a day game on Sunday. That's a quick turnaround. Mm-hmm. So I had pictured this weekend going the total opposite way. And yet here was Springfield pulling out a 4-3 victory over Providence in what I think is one of the most entertaining third periods. I mean, it's been a while since we worked, but that third period was awesome.
It was. And I mean, how bad was the second period though?
Oh yeah, it was brutal. I don't think the Thunderbirds didn't get their first shot till there was about 9.5 minutes left.
And I think they only had 2 the whole period. Mm-hmm. I think they matched. First period, I thought they matched energy. I think both teams played. I think, and we've talked about this, where we kind of think these teams are among the top, and I think they played that way in the first period. It's hard after that middle period. It's always momentum swings, and heading into the third period, you feel the pressure. The way the Thunderbirds played in that second period, I had my doubts. I thought, oh boy, this can get away from us. But again, Zarenko was the reason that they were in that game. I mean, and the Pekka line again. I know I'm repeating myself, but they deserve it. The Pekka line with Walker and Gaudette were the only offense up until that third period. But Providence again, Springfield really struggled getting through that neutral zone. I don't know what they were trying to do. I haven't seen enough of them this year to see how, Coach Drew Bannister wants things to unfold, but they really struggled taking the puck through the neutral zone. Power plays as well. And they just couldn't seem to set anything up offensively. They couldn't possess the puck. They couldn't move the puck. They couldn't settle the puck. They couldn't really do anything other than watch Providence shoot and watch Zarenko save it in the second period. That's real.
And even clearing the zone. I just thought there was a couple of times where they needed to just get the puck out of the zone, and it would either bounce the wrong way or they'd get it close to the blue line and Providence would keep it in. And it's one of those things where you're just, you could tell they're tired. You could tell they're wiped.
Yeah.
Is this going to end in a goal, or are they going to be able to fist this thing out of the zone and get a line change? And there were times where it just felt like forever.
Yeah. Yeah. But to me, like it's moments like that when then in hindsight, you can say, all right, this team has some grit. This team does have some Springfield spirit. And the way they came out in the third period, you have Bolduc getting his first AHL goal. And again, the first line still played really well. They carried the team through, and Zarenko made the saves when he needed to. And it was a very entertaining, very fun game to be a part of.
Yeah, I went back to my trusty game day notebook, which I have for every game. Providence outshot Thunderbird 16-3 in that second period, which is a lot to overcome. The fact that they were still in that game at that point is amazing. I find a lot of times in hockey, and this reminds me of the old, mid 2000s Bruins, where it's like you're grinding and scoring goals is so hard, and you grind and you push and you forecheck and you make a line change, and you're putting so much effort into getting one goal, and then the other team gets it and they just go down and it's like bing, bang, boom, score. And you're just like, why does it look so easy for them and look so hard for us? And this was one of those games where it felt like that for 2 periods. And then 9 seconds in, and I know you're from Hamden, Connecticut, so Quinnipiac. I'm a Quinnipiac grad. The goal that Quinnipiac won on in the NCAA finals, right? Yep. They go to overtime. It took, I believe it took 9 seconds.
Yeah, that was the play that they did. Yeah, yep.
It was like the exact same play. They get the puck, go down, bing, bang, boom, they score. It was Zach Bolduc's goal was gorgeous. Matt Pekka's goal was gorgeous. Adam Gaudette's goal was beautiful. So it's like the more that they gel, the more they figure this out, the more that they can work cohesively as a team. I don't think we're going to have to see those grindy, goals. I think you're going to be able to see some real beautiful highlight, high flying goals. And I think just like that missed hip check in the Hartford game turned things around. That goal that Walker scored 9 seconds in to the third period, that was the one that you're like, all right, like now we're ready to go.
You felt a sigh of relief. It was kind of like, okay, let's go now. You kind of, I don't know. That's how I felt sitting in the stands. That was the sense I got. People sitting around us. You're like, okay, let's go. Here we go. And the top line scores 4 out of the 5 goals. I don't think you would expect 80% of your goals to come from one line. If that's the case, that could be tough. But when another line steps up to match that first line production, and I think it will be the Zacks, the line, I think Bitton was with them this weekend. I think that line is going to step up and even just make those hustle plays. I offensively, I agree with you. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of those. You'll see them, but hopefully those games where you're just grinding. Hopefully it comes a little bit easier. But a lot of things to be optimistic about this weekend. And I think it's something to be said when you can say, we might, against Providence, we might not have been the better team over the course of 3 periods, but you get the win. I think that's huge. And overall, I think it was, if you told me after this opening weekend, you're coming out with 3 points, I'm okay. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Something that something I did not love. And we hate to keep picking on the guy, and you bring it up. As soon as this happened, I immediately texted you in section 1 because I'm like, why does this always happen to Matt Kessel? Why does it happen to this poor Matt Kessel? But I'm watching it, and I kind of have my angle from where I sit goes to the far corners. When things are in the near side corner with the glass, I can't really see it all that well, but the far corners I got an eye on beautifully. And one of the Thunderbirds defensemen has it in the far corner. One of the guys comes streaking up right in front of me, and he's trying to make a cross ice pass, on the fly. And as he releases that puck, Matt Kessel just skates right in the way. The puck hits Kessel. Providence gets it, and I immediately said they're going to score here. And I think that was the Toporowski goal where it hits Kessel, somebody gets it, makes a pass, goal. All of a sudden your transition offense turns into a goal. And that was it's one of those ones that you're like, why?
Again.
Like, I can't even blame him other than why? Like,
it's hard to explain it. Like, and again, I think Kessel has the talent. He does. He's very talented of a player. It's not that a lack of talent creates these wrong place, wrong times. It's just I would never want to go to MGM with him and play craps.
That's such a good way to put it. Don't come with me either, because I can't play craps either.
Yeah, I don't know if. Well, maybe. I mean, I don't know. But but yeah, it's things like that. It's just you're like, why? But I think overall in the weekend, though, I actually think he played pretty well this weekend.
Agreed.
He didn't, other than that one play, he didn't really stand out. I thought he played pretty good defense. I thought he seemed more aggressive, a little bit more in the mix on a few of the penalty kills in the Sunday game. He was mixing it up pretty well. So I thought he played okay. He finds himself in very inopportune moments that the other team always seems to capitalize too. I think that's what at least in my perspective, hurts Matt Kessel a little bit, is that the other teams take advantage of those mistakes. Mm-hmm. They're probably mistakes and things that all players do all the time, but they're not highlighted with a goal like Kessel's always are. It's just
I know I hear what you're saying, and again, we're not trying to beat up on the guy or anything, but I think that last year he was relied upon too much. Mm-hmm. And I think that when Tommy Cross goes down and you have call up and you lose Tyler Tucker, and all of a sudden you're playing more than maybe a guy at his age and experience doesn't need to play.
Sure.
I do think that now with Callie Rosen, with Wyatt Kalynuk, with Leo Loof and Dylan Coughlin, I think that not that he's going to play less, which is the good thing. I think the good thing is that he doesn't have as much on his shoulders.
Sure.
And especially being the A, you can kind of lead by example, but not be the guy who has to play 25 minutes a night. I think he'll be able to kind of ease things in, play on the penalty kill, play some special teams, but also have other guys around him that he can work with. And I think that'll be good for him as well. So not trying to beat up on Matty Kessel, but it wasn't exactly
there's always a Kessel moment. There's always a Kessel moment. And I guess, I don't know. And it's also, maybe I'm looking for it more because we talk about it, but there always seems to be a Kessel moment. And there wasn't one Saturday.
That's true.
Not that, again, it's just so,
maybe it's one a weekend. Maybe it's just one a weekend. But, hey, some guys are able to sort of break out of this, but I had the perfect angle of that puck hitting him right in the back of the skates, and I'm like, oh, this is just not good.
And that's it. That's it.
So, I mean, hey, from a Providence perspective, I think you got to be a little disappointed. They are 2 games played, no wins. So a shootout loss and a regulation loss. So that's something to keep our eye on, as well as, I got the standings pulled up here, and the basement is Providence and Bridgeport, right? 2 games in, right? Yep. But there they are at the basement. So so it's interesting. Anything else you had from that game you wanted to touch on before I sort of?
Not really. I mean, I think overall, again, I've said it before, but 3 points after opening weekend, I'll take it. Things to work on as the team continues to gel. We'll be able to critique a little bit more, but overall, I think good things from line one. Another line has to step up, and I have no reason to think that it won't happen. I mean, another line needs to step up, and I'm sure they will. And goaltending, if goaltending can stay consistent, I don't think they need to play on their heads every single game, because I think the T-Birds can score. I think they have offensive power. But if goaltending can stay consistent, I think you're looking at a team that at the end of the season, in the middle of the winter, we're talking about this team making a playoff push.
Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to add is that, we talked about when goals are like a sigh of relief, like thank God.
Mm-hmm.
I found they started with a goal that was a sigh of relief, and they ended with a goal that was Adam Gaudette, hands up in the air, skating on one skate right past the Providence bench, looking at the crowd going wild, like cockiness, arrogance. We're better than you. Like, that's what we need more of is, we're going to go out there and, playing to win, not playing not to lose. I don't want any more sigh of relief goals. I want in your face, cocky, we're better than you, and we're going to drop the puck. We're going to score another one. That was what I saw from that Gaudette celebration. And that's, we talk about the top line, right? They got 4 of the 5 goals, but that's what I want to see more of, is that feeling of we're better, and they showed that against a team that I think on paper, I think Providence is better than Springfield on paper. I do. Mm-hmm. But to have that feeling at that goal, I thought was awesome. Mm-hmm. I just want to share something real quick that you guys sort of like to know. Some listeners like to know what goes on behind the scenes. And I talked a little bit about this with Luke and with Kevin. We all have the headsets on, right? And we're all sort of talking to each other. And we have 2 channels. So I have 2 buttons on my console, and I have 2 volumes. And one goes to the off-ice officials, who give me penalties and goals and assists and all that stuff. And the other one goes to Luke in production. We talk about what we have coming up. Well, this weekend, for some reason, the 2 lines were crossed. So we had not only all the people that Luke talks to on headset, but also all the off-ice officials all on the exact same line. So you want to talk about chaos, and I made some big mistakes during a pregame, and I sincerely apologize to Paul Pignelli for calling him Peter Pignelli. My brain was in 1,000 different places, and I wasn't reading what I was saying what I was reading. So I apologize 1,000 times for that. But boy, oh boy, you want to talk about voices in your head as you're trying to do something, just absolute chaos. So hopefully we can get that fixed before the next game. But we had at least 12 or 13 people all in the same line trying to do 2 different jobs.
Wow.
Just madness. So, hey, you know what? These opening weekend, these things happen. We had Saturday night. I said, let's go down to that Pioneer Valley indoor karting opening video, and it didn't fire. The anthem singer got out Saturday night, forgot the mic, so I had to give him mine through the glass. I don't know if anybody
I saw that. Yep.
So, sometimes these things we had some clock issues because you keep pressing stop and it didn't stop. So, boy, Sunday was one of those games from behind the scenes angle. We were just like, let's just get to 0-0s in the 3rd period and get the hell out of here, because this is one of those days where it's not going so well. So,
but I mean, the cool thing is, and like from a fan's perspective, that's what I am. A lot of that stuff doesn't like, and this is why I'm glad we were able to have Kevin and Luke on to shed light onto what does go on behind the scenes, because we're watching a football game. You guys are working. Like you said, you've got your people talking in every ear and noise coming from all over the place. And I mean, it's still just as enjoyable. I know you guys have a job to do, but I can guarantee you my kids didn't didn't pick up on any of that stuff. You
Yeah.
know, we're happy, we're having fun at the game, and everything is just rocking at the Thunderdome.
Well, especially in radio, I always say don't let if your hair's on fire behind the scenes, don't let the audience know that your hair's on fire. If you tell them that your hair's on fire, then they're going to be like, oh, listen to this. Look at this disaster.
Yeah.
But if you don't tell them that your hair's on fire, they won't know what's going on. And so we just try to, you just try to roll with it and you make it as best you can. And I thought everybody, again, handled it as well as we can. We're all trying to do a job and things happen. And we got through it. So that's all that matters. As we kind of look ahead here to next week, only one game at home. I do have my AHL TV kicked on, ready to go. So I'll be tuned into those games on Saturday and Sunday, but it's kind of a weird schedule. Usually if you have a 3-3, you're playing teams from Pennsylvania, usually you do the Pennsylvania sweep, right? Like you go out there, 3 games, you play Lehigh Valley, Wilkes-Barre, and Hershey, and then you come back home. I don't know if I ever recall a 3-3 to where you play a team from Philly on Friday, and then you get on the bus and you drive to Pennsylvania to play 2 other Pennsylvania teams. It's just the schedule is kind of weird to me. I don't know if Lehigh Valley even plays anybody on Saturday, but that's it. The T-Birds host Lehigh Valley on Friday, and then Wilkes-Barre Saturday, and then Lehigh Valley again in Lehigh Valley on Sunday.
Yeah, this is tough, right? 3-3s are tough, and especially 2 on the road. I'm hoping and I'm expecting 2 wins. I think that would be great. Again, going back to my earlier point I opened with, I think these are the teams that if Springfield wants to separate themselves, these are the teams you got to rack up the wins against. I think a win, at home Friday night, I think is big to start the 3-3. And then if you can come away with a point at least, I mean, I really would expect them to win 1. I would like that. So do you have any other expectations?
Well, no, I like I kind of said earlier, I think these are the 2 teams where you might find some surprise.
Yeah.
Like now, the expectations for me are not very high for either one of them, but you might look at the schedule in the standings come January and be like, man, Lehigh Valley has really turned it on. Or, it's interesting. I just looked them up. So Lehigh Valley plays obviously in Springfield Saturday. Then they go to start over. In Springfield on Friday. Then they go to Hartford to play in Hartford Saturday. Then they go back home to play Springfield again on Sunday. So they have a 3-3 as well with travel. And they had to play 2 games on the road, just like we do. So, again, I don't know geographically, but I assume that Springfield and Hartford are kind of equidistant to Wilkes-Barre and Lehigh Valley. I don't know. I assume that it's probably similar, but I got to assume both these teams are going to be sleeping well on Sunday night after this. So it'll be interesting. We'll see what it comes in. And I think that this probably the first 10, 12 games of the season is going to be that feeling out process, right? It's going to be trying to figure out who's who, what's what, get used to the travel schedule, get used to the hotels, the buses, everything else that goes on. So we'll see, but it's exciting. And it'll be interesting too, to see what the goalies look like. The 3 games, who plays 2 of them? Or do you see Will Cranley for the first time? I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I'd like to see keep the hot streaks alive for Subban and Zarenko. I would like to mention our buddy Al Arman. I think he wanted me to mention that they are putting together a little road trip this weekend. They're going to be staying overnight at Scranton Wilkes-Barre, and throughout the course of the season, they will be putting together different road trips for like some of these 3-3s or local road trips to try to keep the Thunderbird spirit alive on these away trips. So I do know, check into our Facebook page, the Shake, Rattle, and Goal. Check into the Thunderbirds fan page, because I think he'll be putting information up there. But I think they got a group of 20, 25 people actually who are making the road trip this weekend. So hopefully that Thunderbird spirit follows them all the way into Pennsylvania.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So, well, this is great, Matt. We finally got some hockey to talk about. I think we're in midseason form because we've been doing this now for a little while. So,
yeah, hopefully my voice, thank you listeners. Thanks for putting up with my voice this episode. Hopefully, it was just that opening weekend and I'll sound better next episode. I promise.
Well, you got to remember, Matt deals with kindergartners all day. So,
yeah.
you do those 2 games, then you go right into dealing with kindergartners as a gym teacher. So,
and I was outside all day today and it was windy. I had to project my voice a lot. So it's hurting today.
God bless you. God bless you. Well, I do a lot yelling. I do with high school kids. So I'm like, I'm not raising my voice because I need it for a living. So you will sit down and you will shut up.
Yeah.
So I'm able to have a little different tone with the older kids, but no, you sounded fine. And we got through it. Rest up because we'll be doing it again next week. We do want to give, again, one more shout out to our friends at White Lion. Thank you for sponsoring this show. Check out their new location in Amherst and in Tower Square in downtown Springfield. Great local partner here in the 413. They do some pretty awesome stuff. Give them a like, give them a follow, even if you can't make it down there. Follow their social media channels. They're active and they're always liking our stuff and we're always liking theirs. So we got a nice little partnership going on with them. And yeah, Matt, it's been a pleasure and we'll do it again soon.
Thank you for listening. And as always, let's go T-Birds.